Nnamdi Kanu have recovered IPOB, reactivated his voice, he is going to play a major role. I wish that Mazi Nnamdi is around. But all the same, he is going to join us very soon. Very, very soon. It's not going to be too long. He's going to join us. And I bet you everything will come back to normal. It will never be the same again. It will never, ever be the same again. Nigeria has ended. Let them continue to pretend. Continue to pay your $9 million to change narrative. You can never change the truth. You can never change the truth that its time has come to be revealed. You can't change it with all your $9 million. Today, in the congressional hearing, truth is busting bubbles everywhere. I want you to listen to this one.
Us to exist and for people to follow it, push it, defend it, yet argue for justice in Nigeria. But I come here as a missionary. I come here as a witness who's been on the ground in the very places that are being attacked. The very places that Nigerians themselves are too afraid to go to. Because I wanted to testify to the truth of what is happening. Lobbying groups like DCI, Islamic forces in Nigeria, and politicians want to try to label me as just some activist being paid by this person, paid by this organization. Our records are free and public online. Nobody has paid me and nobody sends me but God. And that's the very reason that I went to Nigeria. Because I knew that immense evil was happening. And I was questioning, why is this not mainstream in America? Why is the world not seeing and talking and acting when you see innocent people being killed in mass? Not just for 1 month, but for years, for 2 decades. And so I chose to go to Nigeria for that reason. I said, if nobody is going to help and nobody's going to stand, I will go and do it. And so I risked my own life to do just that. I knew nobody, but I chose to go because there was a call to do just that. And when I went to Nigeria, I was met immediately with killing. When I went to Plateau, and I went to build schools for Muslims in the north, in Miango, in Bokos, every day I'm getting reports, killing. Someone is messaging me, this person was ambushed, this attack happened, this village was burned. And I started to go spend time with victims' families. I started to go see the actual places that are being under attack as I was there. And I would meet women who are shedding tears and crying, just huddled in silence with their families because their husband was murdered in ambush as he went to go farm. He wasn't a terrorist. He committed no criminal act. He was a Christian who was living in Miango. And because of that, he was killed. And even the very places that I went to go and visit to drill, that very night, Christians were beheaded. In the very village I went to, a matter of meters from where I was, Fulani came in the night, they beheaded a boy, they beheaded a father who had committed no wrong. And as I'm trying to build in other places, in Zike of Miango, 50 Christians were murdered. Their entire village was burned. I was there the next day as smoke is still rising from those very homes. And as I enter this village going down this road, you have women that are flailing in the road, crying and screaming because their husband was just killed. That's the truth. And we rebuilt that village. But as I went to enter and I went into one compound where at least 6 or 7 homes were burned, 7 people were killed in that family. You had dozens of women and children that were huddled into one single room in silence. They're just in shock. And I enter this room and I'm trying to think, Lord, speak through me. Help me to encourage these people. Help me to comfort them. But I was speechless. I tried to say whatever I could, but I broke down crying because what can I say to change the reality of what just happened? Their families were slaughtered. Their homes were burned. They're left hopeless without help. They are forsaken people. What can I say to them? But that moment changed me. I said, even if I have $1,000, it's going to be used to benefit these people. I will not allow these people to be forsaken at the hands of evil terrorists, nor to be forsaken by their government. If nobody else will do it to help them, I will do it. And so I began to rebuild. I began to specifically target the populations and the people that are being killed for their faith and being killed in innocence. And I've been a witness to those very things. I'm not speaking from a screen in America. I'm not being paid by some lobbying group like the DCI is to go and spew lies just for a cause because I'm getting a paycheck. I'm not being paid to be in Nigeria. I am spending money in Nigeria. I've spent more money in Nigeria than any country I've ever worked in. My largest initiative is in Nigeria to rebuild the villages that have been burned down by terrorists, which NGOs and governments are not doing. When I entered Nigeria, not one village had been built. We were the first ones to start rebuilding. And it was that first mission in Nigeria that I started to see the truth. You can hear things from afar, you can see statistics, you can see a Nigerian just say something, but there's always skepticism to what is the truth of what's happening. And I started to experience this on a first-person basis. When you can see blood splattered, when you can see women falling down in the streets crying, and you hear those cries echo as you sleep. As you see smoke rising from villages, it's more than just a picture, it's more than just a news story, it becomes a reality. And it's those things that shook me, that impacted me in such a way that I could not sit on the sidelines. And that is why I chose to specifically take up the initiative in Nigeria to do what I'm doing. To begin to speak. Because I can't see these things happen and be silent. As a Christian, if you follow no God, it makes sense that you don't care. But for me, I'm a Christian and I follow Christ. And due to Psalm 82, we've been called to give justice to the oppressed, to the weak, the fatherless, to maintain the rights of the afflicted, to rescue the weak and the needy. And that is a call for us Christians. That means that is a call for me to act in Nigeria. And that's exactly what I've been doing. But we have evil forces that are lying and trying to cover up the truth. The government has made this clear. DCI Group has made this clear. And even myself, when I was in Nigeria a few months ago, I went to see a mass burial in the mortuary where the bodies were being held in Kuru of Jos South in Plateau State. I was refused entry by the Nigerian police, the DPO of that area. He said, there was no attack, there's no reason for this burial to be covered, you should just leave. The Nigerian police did this. Yet the truth was that Christians were murdered in a mining site, having done no wrong. The bodies were still being cleaned and dragged through the mortuary with blood stains everywhere. You could hear the echoes of the people crying. And the police are saying, nothing happened. There was no attack. There was no murder. You don't need to be here. You don't need to show anybody. Just leave. I refused. Ezekiel Dachomo came. The youth leaders came. They said, ignore this person. You're going in, period. I went in. And what was I met with? I was met with boys, young men, who had bullet holes across their bodies. Blood was literally pouring out of those bullet holes as I was there. I have videos and I have pictures of this moment. You had blood stains of bodies that were dragged through the mortuary. People that were killed in innocence. And a father who was just looking at his son's body as blood is pouring out. People that are crying and wailing. They're saying, when will people stand for us? When will there be justice for people who are being killed innocently? And those moments only motivated me more. You have to speak. You have to act. This has to be told. Because this isn't just a terrorist group that is operating in one area doing some things. You have terrorist groups around Nigeria. You have the Fulani militia terrorists that are operating pretty much in every single state in Nigeria. And you have a government who is watching it and directly allowing it. And you cannot argue the facts. Why is it that the police will directly lie to me when I already knew the truth before I arrived? Tell me, why is it that leaders in the DSS, the federal security agencies of Nigeria, tell me that only a few dozen were murdered in Yawada? That they doubt even 30 people were killed in Yawada of Benue. When 1 year ago, almost 300 Christians were killed. At least 100 buildings were burned to the ground, homes and shops. And yet it's a federal person high in power who says it was only 30 people. Yet I already knew the truth. Ekpa the persecuted just built a monument in Yawada with every name of the person who was killed. And guess how many there were? Almost 300. So if federal people, if security forces are directly lying and misleading about the truth, what does that say? It paints an extremely dark picture. Even the reverend, the now governor of that state, says there's no genocide. It's just ethnic. It's just farming disputes. This is what you're going to hear from the lobbying group. This is what you're going to hear from governors and paid actors of the government in Nigeria. It's just farmer-herder conflict. It's just ethnic. There's no religious aroma about this. There's no persecution. There's no intentional killing and targeted killing. It's just this conflict. It is being mischaracterized to be something it's not. This is what they tell you. But we have some very important questions we have to ask. Let's say that it is because of global warming. Migrating from the country, the Republic of Niger. They're coming further south because they need more grass for their cattle. Let's go with this. I'll ask you this question. If the Fulani terrorists have taken over all of the interior rural lands, why are they going to the main roads that lead to the capital? Why are they killing people and burning villages along main roads? If they already have taken over all the interior land that is vast, is the grass any different? If you go 10 kilometers interior, is that grass better than the grass along the road? The answer is no. And if it's about competition, if the Fulani are competing for that grass, this means that other Fulani herders are eating the same grass. This means that anybody who is using that grass is a competitor. Why are they not killing other Fulani?
Yes.
Why are they not killing other Muslims? Why is it that across Plateau, in Benue, in Taraba, in Kaduna, these places, they are directly and only killing Christians? I'm not speaking to Borno, I'm not speaking to Zamfara and Sokoto. I'm talking about the Middle Belt. Areas that they are directly targeting and killing Christians. Why are they not killing other Fulani people? They're eating the same grass. They are just as much of a competitor as the Christians are. Yet they're not attacking Fulani settlements. They're not killing Fulani people. They're not beheading them. They're not going into their villages chanting Allahu Akbar and slaughtering people. They are only going to the Christians. Even as I'm rebuilding a village in Barkin Ladi, my own worker took a machete to his head. The very village we're rebuilding, 7 people were just killed last month. They were Christians. Did they do anything wrong? Did they commit a crime? They didn't. They were targeted. They were killed because of who they are. And it shows that there is an effort to displace people, to take over. There's a greater agenda at hand. Just 2 days ago in Mushere, Bokos, they killed over 20 Christians. A few days before that in Kaduna, they murdered more Christians. Essentially, they cut a boy's head in half. A 5-year-old boy, a 6-year-old boy. I want you to imagine that. Your own son or your own daughter having their head cut in half in the name of so-called global warming and grass conservation. I'm sick of these lies. I'm sick of people distorting the reality. I'm sick of people that are hiding the truth of what is happening. It's been too long. It's been 2 decades. It is time that people tell the truth, that people actually act, that people call it for what it is. They're not bandits. They're not herders. They are terrorists.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And if the foreign community and the Nigerian government refuse to call it for what it is, it's no surprise that this goes on for 2 decades. They can't even admit who the actual perpetrators are. What else do you call when someone enters the village yelling Allahu Akbar, beheading people, burning villages? What do you call that? Is that just normal criminality? Is that someone who just goes and steals a phone and runs off? Is that gang violence? It is all-out terrorism. And it's part of a greater Islamic agenda. Because we see people that are being targeted, people that are being killed because of their faith. If you blaspheme Muhammad, if you blaspheme the Quran, if you say something that Muslims disagree with, they have the right to kill you. This is how they view themselves. And this is what we see consistently in Nigeria. Please, give me a moment to talk about Deborah in Sokoto State. She was a Christian in university. She was in a group chat talking about her exam. She was people were talking about Islam. She questioned, why are we talking about Islam in a school group chat? The Muslims were so angry. They said that she blasphemed Muhammad in the Quran. They went and they stoned her. They put tires around her and burned her alive. Is there justice today for Deborah? Was one person arrested and held accountable? The answer is no. Bounties are put on the heads of pastors if they blaspheme. People are killed if they society in the world today. It is not. It is barbaric. Sharia is barbaric. And that's part of the basis of this meeting today. If you want a free society in Nigeria, if you want religious persecution to be over, it is incompatible with having Sharia established across the country. And this is a great initiative of Muslims in Nigeria, because to be a Muslim is to follow, believe, and establish Sharia. They're intertwined, interwoven. You cannot separate them. And so we cannot fight for justice when the very basis of an injustice is Sharia. Because on the basis of Sharia, there's injustice. If you do not submit and follow, you'll be targeted. Which country in the world where Islam is primary is there freedom of religion? Is there freedom of the press? Is there freedom of speech? Is there freedom of action and practice? Is there freedom in Somalia? Is there freedom in Yemen? Is there freedom in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in the UAE, in Malaysia, Iran, Pakistan? Which of these places where Islam rules is there freedom? There's not. Yet they come to our places and take advantage of our freedom to establish Islam and to establish the same laws that we are trying to fight. We cannot allow Sharia to take over here, and we should not allow it to take over Nigeria. If Nigeria falls, Africa falls. That is the truth. And if the West does not view this to be a threat, you are so wrong. Because it's happening under our own eyes in our own country, let alone in Nigeria. And we have to stand against that. We have to stand against Sharia. We have to stand against terrorism. And we have to take extreme measures to protect our country and to protect those that are innocent.
You have heard it, when we talk about this issue, we had this man giving a very wonderful testimony. Very
We cannot allow barbaric
upon all the money they are paying, upon all the millions and millions they are paying to stop the truth from coming out. The truth is popping out like never before. With all the billions and billions and billions they are paying. He's an eyewitness. He was there in Nigeria. He saw everything with his eyes, and he's giving testimony in Washington, D.C. He's testifying of what he saw. And what he saw wasn't a story. It wasn't a mistake. Giving a testimony. They thought they would use their money to suppress everything. How far can their $9 million go? How far can it go? Testimonies are still going on every day. Confessions are coming. They can't run away from it.
That's in power in Nigeria today withstands Donald Trump, survives it. The backlash will make the Biafran genocide look like a warm-up act.
We have with us today someone who has risked his life, someone who has been on ground, someone who has actually committed his resources to build schools for children who have been displaced from their homes, somebody who has empowered women to start life again, someone who was to be bought by Nigerian government and he refused. After that, he was maligned and he was threatened. But his work has exposed a lot about Nigerian government and also about those who walk in that shadow. So I would like to invite to this podium for our dear brother, and he is former mayor of a small town city in Texas, Blanco. So please welcome to this podium with me, Mark Arnold.
Thank you so much. I have printed copies of my testimony here. Fully documented. I want to make sure that everything I say is perfectly factual, so I'm going to rely on my testimony here as I present it. Has all the citations, and I'm happy to provide follow-up. Much of this is eyewitnessed by myself or by my personal contacts all over the country. I've been to Nigeria 16 times since 2010. I've met in depth with two distinguished former presidents, Gowan and Jonathan. I've spent considerable time with the Catholic Cardinal, governors, presidents, senators. I've met with cabinet ministers of this current administration. And I've been all over, from Bukuma to Makoko to Bokos, all through there. So I don't speak just from a keyboard. I speak from boots on the ground. Ngoshe is a small town in the Gwoza local government area. It's in northeast Borno State, which is in the northeast side of Nigeria, and it's right along the mountainous border with Cameroon. The story of Ngoshe is a microcosm of the story of Nigeria. I personally know many of its people, the displaced, the people that are still there, even members of the military that are stationed there, and I talk to them regularly. For a century, up to 2014, this area, Gwoza, was a peaceful Christian region that had 176 churches. This was a Christian area. The terror in 2014 began in the marketplace. Men rode in on motorcycles, started harassing and killing people. The eyewitnesses there say they were lighter skinned foreigners, seemingly from North Africa. The first wave. This confirms the wider record of jihadis being imported during that time frame. There's eyewitnesses to back that up. When the main attack came, the terrorists, Boko Haram, actually dressed up in hijabs and approached the military. They welcomed them, and then they pulled off the hijabs and started slaughtering them. The town of Ngoshe had 6 churches. The attackers destroyed every single one and didn't touch any mosque. When a single church was left standing, the men of the village surrounded it with bows and arrows to defend it. The military came in and started killing them. They had been told that Christians were the threat. When they learned the truth, they took off their uniforms en masse and went AWOL and hiked with 2,000 citizens into Cameroon, the military unit there. And the eyewitnesses say if the Nigerian government denies it, Cameroon won't. The military was told the Christians were the threat. Some 100,000 or more Christians from the Gwoza area displaced at the time, scattered across at least 27 camps in 7 states, plus at least 33,000 that went into Cameroon and were able to stay there. At least 8 displacement camps are in Abuja today. That's the capital, holding some 30,000 people. I stumbled into one in 2019. Had no idea what was going on. Now I run free schools in 3 of those camps. Most of the displaced in those camps, at least the ones I serve, are from Gwoza. The UNHCR documented these camps in detail in 2015. In 2020, when I contacted them for help, they deny those camps exist. They're still there. The people are still there. The documented evidence from 2015 is still there. Now they say it never happened. It's not there. The government calls these people criminals, vagrants, beggars, anything but displaced. And they go in and occasionally they bulldoze their camps. They're harassed and they're neglected. They've had to build their own shanties. You're talking widows and orphans, women and children living in shanties next to sewage ditches, some for a decade now. The government denies them. The intentional denial of recognition and aid to displaced in this circumstance legally qualifies as genocide. This government is guilty of genocide, and I can prove it. Yes. You can just walk into one of these camps in Abuja and prove that this government is guilty of genocide legally. Yes. In May of 2024, 10 years after the Gwoza massacre, the Tinubu administration very proudly declared that Boko Haram had been defeated. It was about that time, now Ambassador Rino Omokri begged me to nominate NSA Nuhu Rabadu for the Nobel Prize. I know Rabadu. For defeating Boko Haram. I asked him for proof and he dropped the subject. 2 months later, my documentary team visited Ngoshe in Gwoza with 2 of the displaced from the Abuja camp. From Maiduguri, they had to travel in a military convoy. They had to stop and defuse a roadside IED. What they found in Ngoshe was post-apocalyptic. The community, churches and schools in ruins still. The people living in fear and squalor inside a military cordon. Our team had to leave in 45 minutes because Boko Haram was spotted just a kilometer away. They defeated Boko Haram. Before they left, they met a military chaplain who had built a new church there. Amazing man. More Than Conquerors Church. In October of 2024, 2 months after my team stood inside that church, Boko Haram filmed a recruitment video from Ngoshe. It featured members of that congregation taken while gathering food. An older man was beheaded with dull axe and his head held up while the crowd cheered. Dozens were treated that way. A young girl from the church was sold into sex slavery. Earlier this year, 2026, when support for the refugees still in Cameroon dried up, the Nigerian government told them it was safe to come home and paid them to relocate back to Ngoshe. The government told them it was safe, paid them. 35 days later, on March 3rd, Boko Haram attacked them. Most of the garrison of more than 200 soldiers dropped their guns and ran. Of those who stayed, at least 4 soldiers were beheaded, hundreds of civilians were killed, more than 300 were abducted, including the nieces of an acquaintance of mine. The More Than Conquerors Church was destroyed. 3 days later, the attackers stood in the central mosque of Ngoshe, declared the region conquered, and renamed it for their caliphate. Earlier this month, the Nigerian government announced the dramatic rescue of more than 400 women and children there. In truth, there was no rescue. Captives had been held 3 kilometers from a military base the whole time. A ransom of roughly 6 billion naira, more than $4 million, was paid in US currency. Nearly 10 years of that entire local area government's budget handed by the Nigerian government to a designated foreign terrorist organization. I've spoken with the man who brokered these terms. He has terrorists on tape confirming it, others on the ground confirm it too. The Nigerian government called it a rescue. When the release was announced, my acquaintance went there to look for his nieces. He was told they were not released because they had resisted converting to Islam. Most of the women and children released were not even from Ngoshe. We don't know where they were from. The women were wearing hijabs, forcibly converted as the price of release. An imam has been recruited by Boko Haram specifically to convert the remaining Christians that are still held captive in the mountains. This is Ngoshe. This is Nigeria. The pattern is consistent. The churches burned, the mosques are spared. At every turn, the Nigerian government is either complicit or catastrophically incompetent. It declared an enemy defeated that was a kilometer away and still staging mass beheading videos. It encouraged and paid Christians to return to a kill zone. It handed millions of US dollars cash to a terrorist organization and called it a rescue. It attacks those who defend themselves, abandons its own soldiers, denies its own displaced, and through all of it, it lies to its own people, to the press, to the United States, while paying Washington lobbyists to keep the lie running. Now here's the bigger picture. This is not just religious persecution. It's not just a humanitarian crisis. What's happening in Nigeria is an ongoing Islamic jihad conquest with global ambitions. It must not be filed under international religious freedom, where good causes go to die. This is a vital national security issue. Nigeria is the 6th largest nation on earth, on track to be the 3rd largest by 2050. 1 in 13 humans alive will be a Nigerian at that time. It's a top 5 OPEC producer with $1 trillion in minerals. Its trajectory is unstoppable. The only question is who controls it and whether it carries great good or great evil. This is what you must know. Nigeria is captured by a 220-year-old Fulani caliphate. They project the illusion of secular democracy like a reverse Wakanda to hide its rotten core. The caliphate was the largest pre-colonial empire in Africa, and it is still today the largest enslaver of free Africans in the history of the world. Still doing it. Its founder was a Fulani warlord, Usman Dan Fodio, a blood descendant of Muhammad. His teachings are widely revered and taught today. His grave site's like a mini Mecca, they call it. He founded the caliphate explicitly to be the platform for the Mahdi, the prophesied jihad messiah. That's all through his writings, his teachings, which are still taught and revered today. To purify the platform for the Mahdi, he taught and practiced a virulent doctrine that Muslims who do not submit to their rule and join the jihad must be slaughtered. This is, of course, in addition to Christians and others who stand in the way. That's Dan Fodio's doctrine that's taught today and revered. The colonial British did not conquer the caliphate. They co-opted and rebranded it, partnering with it as their enforcers and deal makers. They called it indirect rule and locked in its control and independence. They armed, supported, and covered for it when it starved some 3 million Nigerians to death, mostly children, during 30 months in 1967 to 1970 for refusing to submit to the caliphate. They ruled through military dictatorship until 1999, when one of those dictators wrote and inflicted a constitution that mentions Sharia in Islamic terms 165 times, not one Christian reference. It ensures the Caliphate North permanent control of political power, money, minerals, the military, and government jobs. That's what Nigeria is today. The same tribe, the same tactics, the same results, what we are seeing today in Nigeria is one unbroken jihad and genocide since 1804, following the methods, the teaching, and the prophecy of the Caliphate's founder. This is the longest running genocide on earth today. In total, up to 6 million killed, 10 million enslaved, and 25 million displaced since it began, unbroken. By my own calculation, and it's drawn from the historic record. The ruling elite is stronger in control now than ever. They continue to purify Nigeria to be the Mahdi's platform, and they are on the verge of completely hijacking the nation's trajectory. Today, the man rewriting Nigeria's national curriculum, every subject, every grade level, is literally the top scholar for the Boko Haram philosophy. He calls his work intellectual jihad. He controls the classrooms of some 50 million Nigerian children today. That's who's in charge of the classroom. Literally the top scholar for the Boko Haram philosophy, intellectual jihad, appointed by President Tinubu. The government recently signed a military training deal with Turkey, which works through an organization called Sadat. The group's founder said he founded this entity to prepare for the Mahdi, and they recruit their trainers from active ISIS fighters in Syria. That's who's training the Nigerian military. Tinubu did that as well. The 8 or more black flag groups across the Middle Belt and North now pulling as much as $3 billion a year through organized crime. Blood minerals sold to China, mass abduction for ransom, and the slave trade, heroin, trafficking, and extortion. $3 billion a year, just like Mohammed raided the camel caravans to fund the jihad. That's what banditry is. Today, as many as 10 to 12 million displaced persons have as much as a 50 to 60% chance of being radicalized without intervention. Another 10 to 15 million are being raised as al-Majiri. Those are boys who are given to the imam to be raised in the madrasas in the north, fed pure jihad theology, fed Dan Fodio. And foreign fighters continue to flood in through open door borders. Think about that. This is a ticking time bomb. To reiterate, the mass of al-Majiri, displaced and incoming foreigners, numbering 20 million or more total, with their classrooms controlled by literally the top scholar of Boko Haram, and their military being trained by seasoned ISIS fighters to prepare for the Mahdi, they are building a massive radical jihad army on an unprecedented scale. That's happening in Nigeria as we speak. The Nigerian government is fully captured. Its structure, people, and politics, and it is irredeemable. Its corrupt electoral system is mostly a contest over who can loot the most while carrying the caliphate's water. It cannot and will not stop this 220-year jihad purification project. Lately, it has pivoted hard to China. Chinese investment in 2025 leapt to $24.6 billion for the year. That's a 13-fold jump over 2024, the largest of any nation. Beijing elevated Nigeria to its top partnership tier, and Nigerian banks now settle directly in yuan. all of which make it effectively immune to US sanctions. The jihad has already drawn American blood on American soil. The Old Dominion University shooter or attacker who killed Lieutenant Brandon Shaw made his contact with ISIS in Nigeria. I am concerned that our president is surrounded by deeply conflicted advisors and a highly paid army of lobbyists intent on ensuring this corrupt regime remains in power. It is interesting to note that so far, supposedly coordinated with the Nigerian government, the US has only struck jihad factions that are not loyal to the caliphate. Here's how we stop it. 1, pursue genocide charges against the leaders of this administration. Their deliberate denial of recognition and aid to millions of displaced meets the legal definition of genocide and is provable. Treat them like the genocidal tyrants that they are. 2, investigate and move to designate the Sokoto Caliphate as a terrorist organization. H.R. 7457's foreign terrorist organization designation for Fulani militias and Miyadi Allah is the first step. The Sultan of Sokoto, ruler of the Caliphate, is the apex Fulani leader and chairman of Miyadi Allah. 3, lead an international census of the displaced with evidentiary interviews, their eyewitnesses to genocide, and rush them aid. 4, keep bombing the jihadis, not just ISIS, every black flag group, the Fulani militias included. And 5, secure a free and fair election in 2027 with a referendum on a new constitution that bans Sharia and guarantees self-determination, letting the nations of Nigeria choose their own form of government and their own boundaries in peace. The people can build a great nation if we let them. When we do, we won't just secure our most important ally in a dark part of the world. We'll keep the fastest growing nation on earth from becoming a launch pad for global jihad, which is exactly where it's headed today. And let me say one more thing. If this current regime that's in power in Nigeria today withstands Donald Trump, survives it, the backlash will make the Biafran genocide look like a warm-up act. They've already said that anybody that said the word genocide is guilty of sedition, and that's a death sentence. When the first CPC designation was dropped by the Biden administration, that flared up, bloodshed just skyrocketed. If they withstand Trump's administration, if this government, if the Tinubu administration withstands Trump,
I hear you.
the backlash will be unimaginable, and it'll be over. And I believe that with all of my heart. Now I'm gonna share a video, a young man from Ngoshe. A little bit of background because you're going to see him hold this up. In 2021, under Buhari, it was very brutal. We had to have a cover story to get in, and a elaborate ruse to not be killed. They had just killed or arrested and tortured an Israeli documentary crew. They were released 4 days before we arrived to do the same thing. So it was a little bit dicey, but we were able to have a couple pastors from the north that joined us, that were smuggled to us. And they were independent of each other, but they both, and I'm happy to, these are copies, hand them around. But they had spent years documenting the Gwoza massacre. And I bring that up because this testimony is a young man that now works for my organization, Enoch Johanna. If you please watch the video.
Yes, I know this man.
You know him?
Yes. He's a close friend to my dad.
Oh my goodness, I wonder if your father's in here.
I also know this. I know this. And this is my uncle.
Oh my goodness.
I think almost all this. They were killed the same day. This. Also this.
Yeah.
He's a medical lab science. This also my uncle. This is also Matthias. We call him Tarko. He's my cousin from Barawa. Also this. So there's from where my mom comes from, Barawa. I think no need of. Have a lot of people that My name is Enoch Yohanan Doka. I am from Goshe in Goza local government area of Borno State, Nigeria. I have been displaced since 2014. Today, I am speaking as a survivor and as an IDP liaison officer for African Arise. On November 4th, 2013, Boko Haram attacked my village at midnight. We ran nearly 9 kilometers to report to the military. They told us that they had no fuel. Even when money was given, they did not come. By morning, our village was burned to ashes and many people were killed. On 27th September 2014, I lost many people, including my father. My brother's wife was abducted and children. That's how I lost my home. I come to Abuja in 2014 and live in an IDP camp for more than a decade. There was no clinic, no doctor, no government, no hope. In that time, I helped deliver 54 babies. Every one of them saved a life. Mothers, we started a school. We taught ourselves. We survived the best way we could. In November 2024, the camp was still demolished. We were given about 4 days' notice. They come with bulldozers, gun, and clear everywhere. We were given a compensation of about $20,000, around $12, and no place to go. We become homeless again. After 10 years, we become homeless again and again. In 2024, I went back to my village under military escort. We only allowed to stay for about 45 minutes. It was terrible. Everything was gone. Home destroyed. No hope of going back. Churches, over 50 were burned, abandoned in ashes. There was nothing left. Nothing, actually nothing. I know speaking like this is not safe for me and my people. In the past, I was beaten for I wrote about what was happening in the camp. Even now, speaking the truth put me in danger. My life will be in danger. My family's life will be in danger. I was attacked when I arrived back at the camp, beaten, threatened, but I cannot just look away as they continue to carry out the exact same genocide attack on more and more villages across the country. This is because we are not safe. I will not sit down and fold my arms seeing the terrorist sponsor telling the lies. There is no genocide in Nigeria. Or there are other frequent lies, the minor clash between farmers and herders conflict. I cannot be silenced. My friends, my family, my everything have gone. Many are still suffering. Many are dying. This is not just an appeal. This is a plea. This is the truth. The world needs to know about this. The world needs to know what is happening so it can be understood and addressed totally. Because what is being said publicly is not what we have lived in for decades. I am telling you what I have seen, what I have perceived. I have lived in for decades. Thank you.
Boko Haram are being rehabilitated. Now, what they do, after the rehabilitation, they fill form, they ask questions. How many people have you killed? So if you kill 50, you have your own class. 50 and above, 20, I have never killed. So if you have never killed, maybe you stay there 1 month.
What you just saw is a testimony of Nigeria. And even with their $9 million propaganda, yet Chukwu Okike cannot allow them to survive. What you just played, I just allowed the two programs to play. You see Arnold. Arnold is somebody who has been to Nigeria for many years, many times. And the other brother also have been in Nigeria first-hand information. These are people that have seen it, not they say, not like being on social media and talk. The people who have gone on the ground to see things with their eyes. Some of them, they attack happily, they are present. And this testimony is going on in Washington, D.C. as we speak. This is the latest one. This thing I played is just the latest testimony that congressional hearing, the latest congressional hearing I heard this week. The latest congressional hearing. And this is the hearing I'm expecting.